Hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the privilege of having Eric Sanchez, a management guru and former CEO of James Scott Farron's law firm in Raleigh, one of my biggest competitors, and I admire you. I admire all the stuff you did to help him grow, because I know as a lawyer, you can't do it by yourself, and you got to have somebody like you behind the scenes, help push it forward, scale it, all that. So kudos to you, buddy.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. You know how tough it is being in a contrib state and do that too.
Yeah.
That's no joke.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, we're going to talk about management, inefficiencies, all that stuff today, but tell everybody your background and kind of like your story in case they don't know you.
Sure.
Well,
probably the first thing people should know about me is, I'm a former Marine, and all the good and the bad that comes with that. I'm a straight shooter. I'll tell you how it is, whether you need to hear it or not. 23 years ago, I got in the business. As you said, I was working with the Farron firm for a while, handled one of the largest class actions in U.S. history, in re black farmer discrimination litigation. That settled for $1.25 billion. I designed, implemented, and executed the claims management process for that, which saw that had a class membership over 100,000 people. My goal was, as a non-attorney, to be mentioned in the court's opinion, which I was. So I was very proud of that. Did a lot of hard work there. After that, founded intake and case management software company GrowPath, which I exited from. So I'm no longer affiliated with them, but ended up getting 25 technical patents as a result of that. So I took a lot of the inefficiencies that I saw in firms and kind of put it in a software context. So that was great. And then, as I hit 50, I guess I decided, it might be time for me to kind of step out and do kind of my own thing. And so now I'm doing consulting for personal injury firms. I've got a real estate development client, technology companies are out there asking me to help them out. So I'm kind of just taking all that expertise and kind of making it available.
Great. So let's talk about inefficiencies. I mean, we were talking about before we started this interview, and you said it really plain, is that there's so much big margins in PI firms that you can still be inefficient as hell and still make 20%, which is great margins, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know, because I've seen some firms that are very efficient in my masterminds at Filma, and they're making 40%. So tell me what you're seeing out there, because I know you got to see a lot of law firms when you were doing this software with GrowPath, which, by the way, is a very good product. It's a case management system, but it's also got intake in it and everything. It's the whole enchilada. But I'm sure you've been able to see a lot of stuff out there, and kind of just tell me what you're seeing and give some advice to our viewers and listeners out there, what they can do to change all this. I mean, things are changing, right?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, I guess the things that I'm seeing out there are the old way is still the dominant way. What a law firm came up with, they're comfortable with it. A lot of their staff is resistant to change. And as you said, a lot of people are out there, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The problem is, if you've got 20% and you could have had 10% or another 15% on top of that, you could be leaving 7 figures on the table just by tweaking a couple of systems. And if you think I'm crazy, and I know you don't, Kim, but if some of your listeners think I'm crazy, well, if you're sitting there and you have a true intake conversion percentage of 85%, imagine if you could get that up to 95%. How much more money would you get just by tightening the screws a little bit just on your intake process? Then you take that same mindset and you bring it over to how you open a claim, how you get the requisite documentation to begin the matter, how you get those medical records, all of those things. If you start bringing that mindset through, pretty soon you're going to start to see some big time numbers without even adding a dollar of expense. That's what I'm seeing. A lot of inefficiencies and a lot of people just comfortable because good enough is unfortunately good enough.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I've done consulting over the years too, and you go into a law firm and, like you were saying earlier, you got you get resistance because people don't like change, and Nobody does. But the deal is, you know, if you don't change, you change with the times, you're going to be left behind. I mean, that's just, you're going to start, your profits margins are going to go down. You've got to keep up with the times. I remember, you know, when the first 14 years me practicing law, Eric, I never did nothing other than a yellow page. And really your law firm, J. Scott Farron, is the one that made me go out and start marketing, because I was losing cases to him. I tell the story. I walked into the courtroom. I did criminal work too. And I had this guy that was on crutches. And I said, what happened? He said, I got hit by a transfer truck. I said, well, you know, I do that. He said, yeah, I hired this guy off the TV. I thought he must be really good. That was J. Scott Farron. I said, I went back to my partner. I said, we got to change it. They said, no, it's not. And so I left and started my own firm. But the bottom line was, they were not willing to pivot and change. And I was, you know, because I saw the writing on handwriting on the wall that, you know, just sitting around bitching about it is not going to do it. Just sitting around bitching about, I'm only making 15% profit when you could be making 30. You got to make changes. You got to take action. You know, it's not going to do it by itself. And that's where people like you, and, you know, there's a bunch of people out there, Mickey Love, you, Tim Mackey, I think me a little bit, not as much as you guys, are really good at this stuff, you know, and can really help people, you know, and that's why I like masterminds, because we share that stuff. So there's a lot of things out there to do to learn how to do this. But the deal is, if you don't do it, it don't matter.
Well, and a big challenge is just what you said, is there's this like ethos of reaction versus proactivity. So like you reacted when you ran into that guy who said he heard about Farron, and that caused you to have an impact. The best law firms out there are anticipating change. They're constantly looking at their workflows. They're constantly looking at their technologies. They're constantly striving to get better. I'll give you an example. When we first launched GrowPath, do you know what the biggest barrier was? The biggest barrier in GrowPath was that law firms did not want to be in the cloud. They wanted servers. They wanted to walk down the hallway. I had a client of mine, he's a friend of mine, say, I want to go touch my server so I know my data is right there. You know what changed that, Ken? COVID changed that. All of a sudden, when people had to work remote, then all of a sudden they wanted their stuff in the cloud. And that now, if you have an issue with being in the cloud, you're actually a minority right now. It's more secure. You're getting better technologies more readily available. There's just no real argument for having server-based technology anymore. And it's just because the times change. And if you anticipated that, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, you know, I said COVID, lawyers are always, I think, especially PI lawyers, are the last to grab on to something, new technology, new marketing strategies, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it seemed like they're always behind. You know, when I went out to start my law firm, when that guy went in the courtroom, there was nobody out there doing what you do or I do. And I went to other verticals and went out there and saw what they were doing, and then took it back and tried to apply it. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. But the deal was, there's so much out there available for lawyers now. If they want to do it, it's so much easier than it was when I was trying to figure out how to do all this. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people out there like you and me and different ones that are out there that are willing to help lawyers for a fee. I mean, you know, we don't work for nothing. But I think, like you said, the big deal is making that changeover. And COVID pushed us to do that. It made us probably go ahead 5 years at least of what we probably would have if it hadn't been for COVID. It would have been 5 more years, 7 more years. It pushed us, which I think, you know, I told people, out of every something bad, there's always sometimes there's something good that comes out. I think that was the good thing that came out of COVID.
That's true. It's also true for jurisdictions that end up having tort reform. Invariably, if you are a nimble organization and you're able to pivot to the changes in the law, it can actually become a competitive advantage for you if you're already planning for that.
Right.
If you're not, someone's eating your lunch and you're done.
Yeah, because somebody is. I mean, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, so talking about that, what do you know, here's the other thing that COVID did. I don't know if you're seeing this a lot, but I'm seeing it a load. for some reason, what they call it, the great resignation. I mean, it's hard. That's the biggest, I don't know what you're hearing, but I hear the biggest challenge that lawyers are having out there right now are finding good help. And if they do find them, they want like twice what the going rate was 4 years ago. And so a lot of our members, I'll be honest with you, Eric, I don't know what you're seeing. They're going offshore to get people to do, and they're trying to automate everywhere they can. And then when they can't automate, they're trying to get people to do the rote work, not the facing with the clients, but all the stuff like getting medical records, doing demands, doing chronologies, just doing stuff that's behind the work scenes. I call it making a sausage type of deal, Or
Well, first of all, yeah, it's two different. Yes. So I see that as kind of two different issues. So the first one is, of course, access to talent. I think there's a technological solution to that. And I think it's the same solution that exists also for the people that are working in overseas. You have to be able to deliver for your organizational health, in my view, a similar working environment. Said another way, you can't have a different workflow if you've got people working for you in Colombia or London or India than you do in the US. You could, but it's innately inefficient. You want your staff to be able to pick up and understand right where they're at and right how they're doing things. And that's where technology can come in and be a solution for you. So again, whether you're, whatever case management software you're using, if you have a cloud-based case management system, why can't you have a paralegal that works in California or Nebraska? Or, like I always use the example, and I don't mean to pick on any of our friends in Alabama, but, I'll bet you a paralegal in Dothan, Alabama is less expensive than a paralegal in New York City, New York. And what if you could hire that paralegal in Dothan, Alabama, get the same work product at pennies on the dollar and still be in the US? The other thing I would encourage your listeners to do is, I know everybody's kind of hot on the outsourcing train, but they better check with their jurisdictions, because I can tell you North Carolina has a pretty dim view of people outside of the country unless the client has advance notice of it. So that's impossible if you're using intake and you're outsourcing it for the client to have advance notice on it. So, they may want to check on their local jurisdictions on that.
Cool deal. Yeah. I think you're right on that. So when you say technology, can you be more elaborate, like be more specific, like what things like give me 3 or 4 things people could do, lawyers could do?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, you want to make sure that you have a completely remote capable setup. So if you are VPNing into your law firm as a server, there are latencies and inefficiencies that happen in that environment. So if you have a true cloud-based, just think of it. If you're sitting in an airport in London and you go to Google Chinese restaurants, in Sacramento, California, you're getting that information the same time that the person who's sitting in Sacramento, California is getting it. You're hitting it at the same time. If I'm going into, the law offices of John Smith and I have to go through a VPN access, it goes into a really tight straw. It's secure, but it slows everything down. So if you're trying to then do workflows and whatnot through that system, it's going to be too slow. You really want to have it opened up. Second thing you're going to want to do is have really strong security. You're going to want to have 2-factor authentication. You're going to want to make sure that you can validate who that user is. I know some firms actually blacklist countries that they don't have other workers in. So said another way, my law firm is in the United States. I have a relationship with people in Colombia who are doing medical record retrieval or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and blacklist any other IP address that tries to get into my system. So that's just kind of another thing that you can do. And then if you have any sort of language deltas, you're going to want to be able to make sure, are my notes going to be in English? Are my notes going to be in Spanish? My notes are in English. Can I read it? Are they cogent? I've seen some really crazy stuff inside of case management systems. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So another thing about efficiencies, you're talking about this, but I think AI is going to change a lot of things. We're having this AI workshop. I think and it might be over with by the time this airs. It's August 10th and 11th, I think, in Charlotte. And some people say, well, I just, I think it's dangerous. I'm scared of it, whatever. But I liken it to when the internet came out and the younger lawyers jumped on it and they were just getting all these big cases, and the older guys like me didn't take to it as well as quickly. And they killed it for years. And then the other firms, they figured it out, but they were so far behind that a lot of money was lost. And the way I see it, this is AI. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect now, but I think if you don't jump into it and try to figure out how to use it to make law firms more efficient, I think you're going to be losing out. But I don't know. You tell me your deal on it, because that's what you do today.
So I'll tell you, Ken. So my son just graduated from law school. He studied for the bar. And it's funny, the old joke about, why did you go to law school? You went to law school because you sucked at math and science. And so things that have technology, right, can be intimidating, for lawyers. One of the things I think that we really need to get out there in the community is that a lot of things that are masquerading as AI are not AI. They're not really artificial intelligence. They're automations. They're elaborate algorithms that are programmed to give you a result based on an input. In fact, most, I think, of what you see out there is exactly that. It's not true artificially thinking and iterating and developing these systems. Right. And so this idea that, AI is going to get out there and launch nuclear missiles and kind of get rid of the world, that's not Alexa. Right? That's not what people are afraid of. And so when you're looking at, Chat GPT, for example, I try to play with that for 5 to 10 minutes a day, and I try and cover the waterfront, whether it's kind of asking a personal query or ask legal queries. ChatGPT is going to be able to tell you the difference between comparative negligence and contributory negligence. It's not going to be able to tell you a legal strategy on how to deal with if you have a case that's got contrib. Can I set this up for last clear chance or whatever? Like, it's not going to do that. And so I think you're wise to point that out, because the lawyers that are afraid and act out of fear are like anybody else that acts out of fear. They fail. You have to be on top of it. You have to educate yourself. And I would keep your own counsel. One of the tips I'll give your listeners that works for me, free and easy. I set up Google alerts for whatever it is that I want to learn about. I remember when I was studying in GrowPath, we had a regression model, and I really wanted to understand how the regression model worked. That's how it would value things. So I set up Google alerts for machine learning and regression models, and I'd get some of these things were way over my head, but some of them were really great at simplifying these complex things. And you really need to know that not only as a business owner, but as a consumer, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. There's going to be a rise of vendors out there selling snake oil as AI. And it's not really AI, and it's not really impacting you. You just end up paying $100 per user per month for magic beans. So you would really do wise. I applaud you guys at PILMA for putting on the workshop about it, because it's just not enough conversations happening. People are just reading, oh, Elon Musk is afraid of AI, so I should be too. I mean, it's just not. Not really being
it's not going to replace people, but I think it's just going to make things more efficient. I think what I'm saying is there's some platforms out there that are free, because you got to worry about putting it in the Chat GPT because help and all those things, but you can get your own platform and feed it and teach it, you know what I'm saying? And then you got it all covered, and there's stuff out there. And I'm just thinking, if it take me hour and a half to do a demand, if I could do it with this platform, not Chat GPT, but this, whatever you call it, and knock it out in 15 minutes, even after me reviewing it, then I can get out 6 more demands.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's right. It's going to be AI is going to be an assistive tool. I mean, if you think about this as a business owner, why are these tech companies putting out AI? They're putting out AI to generate money, to generate business. They want you to stay in business. They need you to be able to pay for that service. And so the challenge is going to be how we can adopt it in the legal community. I mean, that's, we could look to the medical community about how they're adopting, how radiologists are getting better by using AI tools to help read, imaging. I mean, it's really important for us to stay on top of this.
Yeah, I think so too. Good deal. So any parting words, anything you want to leave our listeners with about stuff you're seeing, stuff you would tell them to do or not do, or be scared of, or be wary of?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would do is I would recommend that people consider doing an annual audit of core systems. And I mean, just kind of really look top to bottom. And by core systems, I don't mean 1,000 different core systems. I mean big ones: intake, finance, your operations. Like, just take a critical look at it. Maybe you put a couple of bucks at an independent person. You named a couple. Mickey's great, Tim's great, you're great, I can do it. Just somebody that takes a step out there, looks in and says, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Especially if they're tied in, as we are, to kind of the trends that are coming in there. Second, I would encourage people not to be lemming-like, oh, I'm gonna implement this solution because this law firm's doing it and it worked for them. That's a good start, but you need to be aware of your culture. If you've got a queen bee, or somebody who's really dominant personality in your firm, and they're not fully supportive of whatever new technology you're going to get on, you're going to have a problem. And so you need to be aware of those cultural differences. And then third, I would just say, you didn't stop going to school, in law school. You've constantly got to be educated. I don't mean CLEs. I mean keeping up on technology, keeping up on the trends, what's working, what's not working. It might work to outsource this workflow and not this workflow. Your jurisdiction may be different. So, those are kind of the 3 big tips that I would give your listeners.
Well, I think they're really big ones, and I think they're very, very well taken. I mean, and I don't care how smart you are. You need somebody coming in from outside, because I've had people come in and look at my stuff before, and I think I might know it better than they do. But the deal is, I'm in the forest. I can't see the trees for the forest, and they can see it real quickly. Something that I should, if I've been looking at another business, I'd have saw it too. But when you're in it, you can't see it. I don't know how to explain that, but I just know it's true.
Yeah,
I mean,
you get too familiar, and you just, pretty soon it's like, what I liken it to. I don't know if you're like this. I'm like this, Ken, where I'll take a Post-it note and I'll put on my computer monitor to remind me. And pretty soon, if I have 30 Post-it notes, it just looks like my computer monitor. It's not, it just becomes part of the environment. Yeah. And so you need something new that's gonna prompt you, and someone that's going to challenge you. And a lot of law firms, especially successful ones, whether they like it or not, they got a lot of yes people around them. And they need someone who's going to come in there and put their foot in the backside when they need it, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, you do. It's just called, yeah. Agree. So if people want to get up with you, pick your brain or whatever, how's the best way?
Best way is I'm a prolific emailer. I think I email 24/7, 365. So Eric, ERIC at Strat Partners. You can also go to mstratpartners.com. I love talking, like I shared with you earlier. If any PILMO members out there want to have a conversation with me, I'll do it gratis. I'll help them talk through some things. And I'm not for everybody. I'm going to tell you the truth. So if you're looking for a frictionless integrator, that ain't me. I'm going to tell you what I think and how I think it.
Well, that's what people need to hear. I always tell all my people here at PILMO, I said, I don't want yes people. I said, I will not kill a messenger. I said, but I can't make it better if I don't know it. And you guys are in the trenches, and I need to know what's going on. And listen, we can't get better if we don't know it. I mean, so I welcome it. But let's be honest, a lot of lawyers' egos don't want to hear it. Just being honest. But the deal is, I think you need to put set that ego at the doorstep and listen, because I mean, look at the stuff you've accomplished. I mean, you didn't get there by being stupid, all right? So you know a little something. You know what I mean? So pay attention to people like you. Really. I mean, even if you don't like it, I mean, some things are painful,
Well, I'm not ever contrarian for contrarian's sake. I mean, I know I've seen a lot inside of a lot of more law firms than a lot of people have. I've seen what works, what doesn't work. And sometimes it's just a different, fresh perspective causes your own perspective to change or see something differently.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Eric, and good luck on this new venture. I know you'll do very well, because you got the knowledge and people want that knowledge.
Well, thanks, Ken. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing at PILMO, and happy to help in any way I can.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.